gallon-sized Ziploc bag. It is half full of my early harvest of dandelions. Hold up though, it's going to make a really, really sweet jelly. First, we're going to wash the dandelion flower heads in some salt water to kill any insects and to clean the flower. I also rinsed mine before I took the green part off of the flower heads because this part would be bitter. Then I measured approximately 2 cups lightly packed. The next step takes approximately 24 hours, but it is so worth it. I am simply adding the flower heads with the stems off into a pitcher. Meanwhile, while that sits, I'm going to get a measuring cup, put in 4 cups of water, and boil it in the microwave. You cannot pour hot boiling water into a glass pitcher without it bursting. To keep it from bursting, you're going to want to pour it very slow. I'm not going to make you watch me pour in all 4 cups of water into the pitcher, but I really wanted to show you how slow I'm pouring this in because I do not want my pitcher to burst. If you are using a plastic pitcher, by all means, dump it all in at once. Okay, now all the water is in. I'm just going to pop this in the fridge and let it sit for 24 hours after it cools. The first step anytime when making jelly is to heat your jars in a pot of water. If you skip this step and pour hot jelly into your jars are going to burst just like the pitcher would have. While the jars are heating up, I need to strain the flowers out of the liquid. The dandelion liquid you just made is not going to be yellow, as you can see here. After straining your flower petals, you're going to want to get all of the liquid out of the flower petals. As you can see here, I decided just to pick them up and squeeze them. If you do not have the same pectin I use, you can use 1 box. I am using 2 3/4 tablespoons of instant pectin. The recipe also calls for a half a lemon. So we're just going to add the lemon juice and the pectin into the pot. Next, we're going to add the dandelion tea we brewed earlier. Do not add the sugar just yet. You're going to want to use a wooden spoon. The plastic spoon may end up getting too hot. You may still see chunks of the pectin, but it will dissolve. You do not have to stir constantly, but you're going to want to stir occasionally. And you're going to want to heat it on high. You're going to want to stir, and when it comes to a rolling boil, you're going to want to continue stirring to make sure it is, in fact, at a good rolling boil. And this is the point where you're going to want to add 4 cups of sugar. From here, the sugar will stop the liquid from boiling. You're going to want to stir constantly and the sugar will dissolve. Once the liquid comes to a rolling boil is when you're going to start timing the liquid. You're going to want to boil it for 1 to 2 minutes at a constant boil. I chose about 1.5 minutes. If I had chosen to boil longer, it would have been a little thicker. You're going to have somewhat of a thin liquid to start off with, and as it cools, it will set and become thicker. Now that we've done all that, our jars should be ready. And from this point, you're not going to want to touch the jars with your hands because they will be too hot. I'm using these clamps. If you do not have these clamps, you could always use tongs and grab them from the inside. Just be extremely careful not to drop the jars. Once I have put the jelly in the jar, I need to wipe the rims off with vinegar and a paper towel to ensure there's no jelly on the rim. Excess jelly on the rim can keep the jar from sealing. It is also recommended to use new lids when you're canning. The rings should be removed after the product is cooled and sealed. That noise means the jar has not sealed yet. I'm wrapping them in cloths to get them to seal, or you could choose the hot bath method. I have found the cloth method works just as well. This recipe makes 3 pint jars full of dandelion jelly. I do recommend boiling it for at least 2.5 minutes instead of 1.5 like I did. You can hear the difference in the noises of the jar that's sealed and a jar that is not sealed yet. If you're wondering how the jelly tastes, it is similar to a honey flavor. It is now my new favorite jelly. Now that both jars have finally sealed, I want to tell you the third jar I did not seal because I want it left open.